I want to talk about Breathe Neighbourhood. This is my project in Tumby, and what smart, helpful and healthy homes mean to me and what I'm doing to do that. And then also environmentally smart, what that means to me and what I've learnt over the journey. So this all really began, well, before we get into it, I saw this meme, I thought it was fantastic. Obviously, for those who can't see it, the sun, all the planets are around the sun, around the campfire, toasting, and does anyone know a horror story? And Earth pops up, I do. And then a few moments later, and that's the story about humans. And I think it just encapsulates what we're doing to ruin the planet and obviously the solar systems. But anyway, and that's I guess the basis of my talk. This is about what I'm doing to make the world a better place. And I guess I put it out to a challenge, and that's why I guess a lot of you are here are interested in how we can, as humans, can improve the planet. So I guess this all started for me. My project was 8 or so years ago when price of electricity really started skyrocketing. We had to look at, with Modra's apartments, what we could do to reduce our electricity. And we decided we looked at can we get PV in. And the guy that was installing them or came to have a look said something about, why don't you look at how you make your apartments more efficient? And that really resonated with me because built back in the 60s, really inefficient air conditioners. And that just really resonated. How can we make the place more efficient? And also I was talking to a friend about peer-to-peer trading. Why can't our excess electricity, rather than just giving it back to the grid for peanuts, why can't we trade it with our neighbour or give it to the hospital down the road or even someone down in Adelaide, or my parents in Adelaide perhaps. So those three things all combined into leading me into researching this project. And I'm certainly not an architect, I'm not a permaculturist, I haven't studied all these things, but the last few years, it all started with Renew magazines. I certainly read lots of books and podcasts. I talked to lots of industry people like Des and architects. I followed government programs. I researched numerous residential developments that have happened, especially those that have built with ESDs or environmentally sustainable design goals. Had lunch and coffees with people that lived in these and built these places. Certainly read lots of journals and peer reviews and looked at what's happening overseas and looked at all the different terms like zero carbon, embodied energy, cradle to cradle, net zero, zero carbon, living smart homes. And what I discovered with all of that really was that I was totally overwhelmed with all the options that could be done. And I really had to clarify what I wanted to do, for me to be able to make the world better and for my development that I wanted to do. And I certainly discovered that, I became very disillusioned with the building industry as a whole. And I think from what's happened in the past and what's still happening, and I think it is changing. The new design developments, certainly there's a lot of people lobbying to have how buildings are made to be changed, make them more efficient. And I certainly discovered you can't do everything. So I guess what I decided to do was, with my development, one of the first goals that I set was I wanted to provide free electricity to the residents that live at Breathe. So Breathe is a residential park that we're building where people will own the homes, and I wanted to design it in a way that had free electricity for the residents. So that wasn't a cost. And that meant I had to build obviously energy efficient homes and build a mini power station that produced their own renewable energy, and we could export enough value to cover the cost of what we would need to import. So that's what I've been studying over the last few years, of how I can achieve these things. And before I got to designing the building, we had to decide, well, what do we want to build at Tumby Bay? What can we build on the land we have there? And what does Tumby Bay and regional South Australia need? And I came across a fantastic philosophy that looked at, it's called blue zones. Remember that if you haven't looked at, look up blue zones if you don't know what it is. And it looks at places around the world where people live longer, and it looks at what they do, what they eat, their lifestyles, what causes them. And there's certain zones and pockets around that I've gained a lot of insights from. And I looked at ageing, of the ageing population and what plagues people that as they're getting older. And it really boils down to three things, being loneliness, helplessness, and boredom. So I wanted to look at, well, what can I build, not just in the buildings, but in the neighbourhood and for Tumby Bay, that identifies those and reduces some of those plagues for people as they're ageing and living at Breathe. So I really wanted to build and design a very person-centred environment. And it was about creating a human habitat. So not just a street or a subdivision where you live in your house and that's what it is. So I really want to provide or design a place that had a continual contact with, so people could be encouraged to have continual contact with people, plants and animals. And out of all my studies, one of the most surprising things that surprised me the most was the well-being that people feel when they live in a nice environment, when they're doing good things. And I'm sure because you're here, you look at the atmosphere here, people feel great when they're working. You know, Des, you can contribute to that. You know, when you do something that you know is bettering the environment, you know, it makes you feel fantastic. So I wanted to build a neighbourhood that that certainly encouraged that for people living at Breathe. And so I guess before I even designed how I wanted Breathe to be in the master plan, and these are not my words, I don't have the talent of the wordsmith, but we came up, this is a brief that we've given the architects. We wanted to design a neighbourhood that where people could have a sense of belonging yet independence, a sense of neighbourhood yet privacy, a sense of togetherness yet freedom, quiet yet fun, and a sense of environmental awareness yet not feel that that's a burden. So that was the design brief I gave the architects to come up with a master plan of what we can build, or what Breathe will be. Essentially we've got 10,000 square metres, and we designed it around 6 pocket neighbourhoods. And the pocket style living, or the pocket neighbourhoods, is a very European thing. So there'll be 6 courtyards with the buildings, 4 dwellings centred around those. We wanted to keep all the cars out, so we've got car parking at either end. We've got this great wood earth that goes through the middle. So there is car access to get to the front of all the buildings, or to get close to drop off groceries or deliveries, and for emergency services. But that's actually a living street, or that's a term, what a wood earth is, as a Dutch term. And it emphasises the quality of life that we have there. So it's not about the speed of life. So we've got lots of great social areas, a social building, and a yarning circle around a fire. And we really wanted to, you can't see it in a flat form like this, but there's a fantastic neighbourhood, or there's a couple of neighbourhoods in Adelaide called Christie Walk and Lockhill Park that have got an amazing culture there, and that's what I wanted to capture here. So there'll be main central areas, but then lots of little private areas, and really encourage these interactions, these accidental interactions of people and connecting with nature and other people as well. And obviously you can come to Tumby and we can talk about the master plan in a lot more detail. So we've built one display home at the moment, so people can come and see what we've built, get a feel for it, and then the next stage is, so I'm looking for the next stage now is a few people to come and join the project, and we'll build the first courtyard and homes, and then it'll slowly develop from there. So it'll be a few years in the project. So I wanted to talk more about what a smart, helpful home means to me. A lot of different things, and that's why I wanted to really take a few moments to talk about how they all interact together, what a smart, helpful home is. And the term environmentally smart, this is what we through my research, wanted to sort of define what it meant to me, so that it really could guide the architects and designers and town planners about the neighbourhood that I wanted to create. Rather than being net zero impact, we really wanted to have this whole development to be a positive impact or positive benefit on the environment. So I boiled it down to the 7 things. So sense of place, which is really defines what the Breathe has a resounding harmony with the surrounds of Tumby Bay and the neighbourhood around of South Australia. Obviously, positive energy. So that's obviously we wanted to create more energy than what we use, which is a quite important one. That's what really makes me excited about this. Positive water. So we'll look at obviously collecting as much rainwater as we can. I'm lobbying council to try and get grey water so we can do for landscaping, etc. Whether that happens or not, we'll wait and see. But we want to have lots of closed loops so we can encapsulate as much water as we can. Healthy, happy homes, which is something that's I've really enjoyed being. Encouraging people to be able to connect with nature and nurture that well-being. Non-toxic, obviously using as little amount of low VOC paints, etc., and chemicals. Equitable and beautiful buildings. It's imperative that Breathe celebrates and uplifts the human spirit, and that's what I think we've really created as well. Now, the design principles that we really looked at. Remember I said we can't do everything, but we really focused on 7 different design principles. We wanted to make them super insulated. And I won't bore you with the stats and R values, because one, I can't remember, and 2, they probably won't mean anything. But we built really insulated properties. And air tightness. So we've really focused on the building materials and the building methods to be able to create a really airtight building. And we've had it pressure tested, and it's not quite at the passive house standard, but it's certainly very close. So we've had to install HRV, which is heat recovery ventilation system. So that vents the air and exchanges the fresh air from the outside, and at the same time taking the inside air, exchanges the heat and transfers. So you're not bringing in cold air all the time and having to spend that money to refresh or reheat or cool the air. High quality windows. So we've got obviously double glazed windows, but more importantly the actual frames themselves. UPVC windows, which has got lots of air chambers so that the heat and coolth doesn't transfer through to the outside. Thermal bridges. We looked at reducing the amount of thermal bridges from the inside of the building right to the outside, so that the heat transfer won't go through to the outside. We looked at the thermal mass in the building and optimising how much thermal mass we had, but not only how much, but also in the where the position. So we've got a floor which has got thermal mass in it, so the sun coming in on the northern aspect through the windows directly onto the thermal mass floor, and that stores that heat energy in the floor, and then slowly releases it in the evening, in the cool evenings as well. The orientation of all the buildings, so they're all facing north, again to get that northern aspect of the sun coming in the winter, but then shaded for the summertime, so no sun's coming in, and no windows on the western side, and very little on the south. And bio-PCM, which is a bio-phase change material, which is a product that's, as an example, so this is a type of clay that's stored inside here. So phase change is, probably the perfect example is ice. So when a material changes its structure, so when it goes from a water to from a solid to a water, that process of when it changes that phase, it has to absorb a huge amount of energy to change that phase. So this is designed, this particular material in there, at around 20 degrees. So at 20 degrees, it needs to absorb a huge amount of energy, and then as it cools again, it slowly releases that huge amount of energy. So we've placed this in the ceiling under the plywood ceilings. So it's going to work fantastic in warm summer days. So when it gets to 20 degrees, it'll absorb a huge amount of energy and keep a nice stable temperature in the home. And then as the evenings cool down, it slowly releases it. So it's all about creating a nice stable environment, temperature in the home itself. This is what gets me really excited, what I love learning about with the Internet of Things and creating a neighbourhood management system. And what I set out to achieve was four things. I wanted to reduce the amount of electricity the air conditioner used. I wanted to reduce the electricity for the hot water, because they're the two main high energy users in all homes. But also wanted to measure and monitor the electricity use of the whole building, and also measure and monitor the home's performance. So not just the electricity use, but the quality of the air, the temperature of the air. To really analyse, well, is it worth going to build high performing homes and going to those design principles? So I want to analyse the data and measure and monitor those. I found a fantastic product called Homey, which is an IoT hub, basically. And the beauty of this one, it integrates so many different brands of products and devices through different protocols. And it's basically it's enabled me to turn dumb devices or devices, well, just to clarify, a smart device is something that can be controlled by a phone. So like your normal air conditioner, most air conditioners now are a smart device, you can control it by a phone. But this is where it's not necessarily helpful. If you have to get your phone out to do something, it's not actually helpful. So with my device, the Homey device, that hub, I've been able to turn a dumb device like a hot water service that just comes on and off. Now the hot water service that I have, the Stiebel Eltron heat pump, it's got intelligence, so it works quite efficiently. But now that I've made it a smart device, that I can automate that, so I can have it turn on at certain times of the day. Now, there's a lot of products that turn on with solar, so when you've got excess solar, it'll come on. But I've actually taken it a step further, that I can turn it on when electricity prices are very low, or even go negative. So not just to when I've got excess solar, I can do it if prices are negative from the grid, I can draw from the grid and turn on the hot water, and also turn on the air conditioning. So it's gone even further than just making them smart and helpful. And I'll explain more about why that's important and why that's how it all integrates together. So the system I've come up with is total automated climate controls. So not just temperature, I can control the humidity in the room and the air quality. And I had to design a system because it's not me living in these homes. So I had to make sure the user experience was very friendly and easy to use. And also that you don't have to get the phone out to control things and change things. The system's totally manual, so you can turn the air conditioner on, turn the fans on, open windows, all manually, but it's all automatic. So the resident, if they're sitting in the home and it gets to 26, 27 degrees, the fan will just automatically come on. And if it warms up again, an alert might come out and say, oh, it's time to close the windows, we're putting the air conditioner on, and the air conditioner will just come on to keep it that stable temperature. And even the heat recovery ventilation system. If all the windows are open, we don't need the venting system on. But as soon as all those windows are closed, and if the CO2 levels slowly increase, automatically the heat recovery ventilation system will come on. So that's all fully automated. So that's through the Homey hub of what you've been able to integrate, knowing when windows are open and closed, the celestial window at the top opens to vent, the heat ventilation system comes on, the fans in the bedroom, living room, everything's fully automated. So it's been a great last 6 months of, several years of researching it. For the last 6 months now, we've actually built the display home to actually integrate the technology behind it and test it and see how it works. And I guess now that I've been able to achieve that, I can do so much more. So flexible demand management, and this is where I think you've probably read about the grid where they have high peaks, obviously on hot summer days, in the evenings we have a peak demand. So what we can do with our system now is be able to control when those items are used. So ensuring that the hot water service doesn't come on in those peak times, and we can pre-cool the home, so we can turn the air conditioner on earlier in the afternoon so that it's not in those peak times. So that's really taking about the energy of not just one house but our whole neighbourhood can consume electricity during the off-peak times, and take advantage of that with going to the next step. And you might think, well, what's the point? You'll pay the same for electricity whether you use it at 5 o'clock in the evening peak time or not. But and this is all going to be, there's going to be a lot more happening with this. The retailer we've signed an agreement with now, we buy electricity at the wholesale price. So when prices go negative, we get paid to consume electricity. So our whole neighbourhood now can draw electricity and consume that and get paid for that. And then vice versa, when prices skyrocket and go really high, during hot days when there's no wind, so South Australia's not producing a lot of electricity, prices will skyrocket. We can ensure that we shut things down and we ensure that the hot water doesn't come on. If we don't need air conditioners on, or if we don't need the induction cooktop, for 15 minutes the resident might not be able to turn on the oven or turn on the induction cooktop, so we can really reduce the amount of electricity that we used in the neighbourhood. We've also joined a VPP, which is a virtual power plant. So all the batteries that we have on site will link up with all other batteries, the same technology batteries around the state, and we can all export from the battery at those times. So it's not just during the day when we're producing from the solar extra electricity, we can export from the batteries as well and get paid to do so. So those times when prices go right up, we might get paid, rather than 6 or 7 cents a kilowatt, we might get $3 or $4 a kilowatt during that time. So the whole neighbourhood that I've designed is ensuring that we can not just reduce what we use, but the times that we're using the electricity, so that we can save up, and those times when prices go really high, we can export as well. And the company I've signed up with also in the future will be doing peer-to-peer trading. So we can also sell not just to the grid, but we possibly sell to other people that in the neighbourhood as well, either in Tumby Bay or even anywhere in South Australia as well, or anywhere in Australia really. And I've also designed it to be V2H and V2Grid is a vehicle to home. So using an electric cars vehicle can power the home as well. And again, that'll give us not just if the neighbourhood's resident car, that the shared car service will be electric, but if residents have their own car, they can generate an income as well and use the huge amount of energy that's stored in their car can be exported those few times when the prices skyrocket. Thank you. I just wanted to leave you a couple with quotes that meant something to me when I was first learning or researching what I wanted to achieve. And the first one by Michelangelo, the greater danger is not that we aim too high and miss, but it's that we aim too low and hit it. So I've always set my targets high, and I haven't hit every goal that I've achieved, but I've certainly achieved way more than what I expected to. And probably the founding thought of Breathe is, more than anything else, men and women seek happiness. So that's been a founding thought of trying to create a neighbourhood for people to live in where people feel happy.